Okay.
Good afternoon, everybody. It is Friday, August the 21st at 1:06 p.m., and this is a special council meeting. I'll call that special council meeting to order, and by way of explanation to the public, particularly if you are a village resident, you have seen some activity near the Glen Street um, pumping station, and we wanted to give both you a heads up and council a heads up on what's happening before we go into the weekend. So that's the purpose of our meeting today. Item number 2 is the adoption of the agenda, and it's moved by Amy, seconded by Barry, that the agenda for the special meeting of council held on August 21st, 2026 be adopted as presented. All in favor? Carried. Next item is any declarations of conflict or pecuniary interest. Seeing none, I'm going to turn it over to Peter. We can have a bit of a discussion, and then I'll put the recommendation on the table. So go ahead, sir.
So good afternoon. As outlined in the report, the village responded about August 11th to a high water level at the Westport pumping station. So the current duty pump had faulted, was showing an electrical fault. The high level trip operators responded. They were able to operate that pump in manual for the night. The second pump, which had just been refurbished, it was brought into service the next morning. During that time, it serviced the system for a little bit less than a week. In that week, rather severe vibration had developed, and it actually broke one of the mounts that was holding it. So we had already planned to remove pump number 1 this week and drop in and send it out for its refurbishment to try to get it up and running again. And when we switched over the pump number 2, it was also showing electrical faults in the motor itself, high temp and overload. So but coupled with the vibration under both mounting operations and the electrical faults now with both motors, the requirement was that we bring in Aquatech dewatering for an emergency bypass pump. So that station is set up for emergency bypasses for a situation like this. So there's a 2-pump system, diesel powered, pulling out of the inlet manhole and pumping into the common discharge, same as the existing site. Right now staff are working on the permanent solution. So we've got an option of refurbing, just sending both pumps back for the refurb. That's not recommended by staff. The reality is with the pumps that we currently have, there's not North American facilities for that. So we send them to a contractor that was provided by our supplier. It's a good group. I know, like, we know where they are, but they're able to do a pump refurb. But even that older pump, it only lasted a few days. We don't really have a good idea of what was causing the vibration, but the electrical and overload faults, likely that was caused from the vibration, but it's really undetermined at this time. It's not something that was looked at with their refurb. So we've got 2 options that we're actively pursuing. One is confirming a like-for-like replacement. And the second is replacing the pumps with the same pumps we have up at the LSSDS, the same brand we have up at the LSSDS. That's the one that staff are pursuing probably with the most keenness, based on aligning what our pumps our suppliers are, and also based on the fact that the pumps we have at the LCSDS, local suppliers, local maintenance being Ottawa, we've got a lot of background with these pumps, as well as that serviceability. So we are looking at replacing both pumps with new. Those are one of the last pieces of infrastructure at this station. So the last 2 modernizations that occurred have done just about everything else except the small building and the concrete wet well, neither of which are showing any signs of reaching anywhere near their end of life. But the pumps themselves being replaced with new pumps does significantly extend the lifespan of that system. However, of course, it would be an unbudgeted expense for 2026.
So thanks for pausing there. Um, just before we get into the how to, everybody understand what the situation is. Any questions on how we got to today? Okay. So the procurement bylaw is not something the council pulls out on a regular basis, but our emergency procurement allows for the CAO when for three or four issues, but the one that this one fits, of course, is the maintenance of essential municipal services, just to get the work done and report back to council if it's over $50,000. So Peter's going to give you some suggestions on how he thinks this can be funded. It will be north of 200. He thinks 250 will cover the whole thing, including the work that's going there now, for the number of weeks that they have to have that in place, and the new. So when he talks to you, you could decide what you want to do in that. This could just be a briefing, and they're keeping us informed on what's happening, and they get the work done and report back September 1st, what they can report back. You might also want to put a motion forward so that there's sort of a corporate record of council's opinion of this. That's fine as well. But we're not in a position of saying, no, we're not doing that. We really need to get the work done, but I wanted you to be informed, and the public to be informed, and I wanted to give the opportunity to weigh in if you chose to put forward a resolution that I could help you with. So Peter, can you just talk about the potential for funding without going to long-term debt?
Sure. So if we can get pumps ordered quickly, we'll know for sure the mounting arrangement. We're confident that the mounting arrangement will be much faster than the pumps. That will allow us to have a really good handle on the total cost. Looking at the total cost, we have the option of either going to a long-term debt based on a regular unbudgeted capital project. Of course, being unscheduled, we'd bring that back to council in the future. In fact, we bring the other back to council in the future as well.
Yeah.
The other option, if we can get, if some of the stars align, then we can likely fund this in 2026 or fund the majority of this in 2026 by deferring some of the other water and wastewater capital projects, utilizing whatever we have left of OSIF, as this would be an OSIF eligible expenses, which we still are working on that total amount that we have available to us right now. We were using some of that for Spring Street. And then also there is room in the wastewater repairs and maintenance budget, both the amount that would have gone to the refurb for pump number one and the amount that we would keep for regular emergencies that aren't quite of this magnitude normally. So we won't have that answer today, but we are looking at both options of funding.
Okay. So any concerns or any questions for Peter? Amy, go ahead. Councillor Cardy.
No, thanks. I'm just wondering how much are we comparing with these refurbished versus new, the upwards of 250, or how much would it have cost to do the refurbishing?
Go ahead.
Yep. So we don't have a great cost on the refurbishing, especially since we're not sure of the problem yet. So we could send them for diagnostic. We are thinking like it would likely be at least $50,000 to $60,000 to refurbish both pumps. And there's still pumps that are from 2010 and before. The other probably risk for that is they're going to come back and they're going to say that they're not worth refurbishing. The electricians gave their opinion. It's not something I would want to hold to them. We have the third party electrician working on the site. But they were pretty hesitant about the status of the motors based on the faults they were seeing. So if you're replacing the motor, you're probably just replacing the pump anyways. And the risk is time. So if we were to send them out, have them looked at in the next 2 or 3 weeks, and find out that they're not recommended for refurbishment, then it puts us closer to freeze up versus acting on new pumps, which is a risk, as well as the expense for the review and diagnostics, and then best case refurbishment of pumps that are already towards the end of their life. They shouldn't really be end of life, but they're not new. They're not anywhere near new. They've also worked well for the village over the number of years, but they're a system that often runs dry and has pulled air for quite a bit. So they've had they haven't had the easiest life in those 16 years.
Okay, Councillor Cardy, good. Anybody else? Councillor Aragona and then Councillor Card.
Question, Peter. How soon, you said it in very short order. I'm in agreement that option 3 makes the most sense to replace both pumps. It seems to be the safest option, so no concern there. How soon can we get the pumps in place, and what the impact will the lag time have on operations in the meantime?
Good question.
Yeah. So the lead time we have on 2 brand new pumps right now is about 13 weeks. They expect that we would, of course, be able to do the installation of the guide rails concurrently, since we don't have to make the switch immediately with the bypass pump arrangement. We can empty that well, remove the existing mounts, and remount in that time. There is a optimistic potential of a rental pump being able to be dropped in place. If they can find the right size quicker than that, we'd be able to drop them in, and then that would be removing the bypass, would save quite a bit of money, but also result in, from the perspective of outside, a much faster resolution. But right now we're looking at 12 to 13 weeks lead time, where we order the pump, it arrives, the hardware's already installed, they get dropped in, wired in, and commissioned over a day. It doesn't take very long at all. But if we can get it a little sooner, that would be better.
Okay, Joe? Yeah, go ahead. Joe.
So in that time, is there going to be any service interruption, or will the community see any effect on its service?
No, that is part of the design of the system, and companies like Aquatech and this type of setup. They've brought in 2 pumps, a lead and a lag, with the lag kicking in if the lead were to ever quit or fail, and they're set up in that arrangement right now. So there should be no reason to see any impact to the community. In the past, when both pumps are down for like a common electrical or a troubleshooting piece, we've been able to use septic trawlers to keep up. Of course, they can't run 24/7 for weeks on end, and that's why we're here. But there's not anticipated to be any impact to residences outside of the quiet pumps, the diesel pumps, relatively speaking, kicking on and kicking off. The target time frame is greater than 15 minutes off, and on for about a minute to a minute and a half. They'll be cycling. They're still dialing in a little bit to make sure that it's not starting continuously. And at night, that drops a little bit more.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
One last question. So based on the numbers that you were quoting there, it seems that approximately 76,000 is related to rentals for the system that's there temporarily. Is there any value that we can see in replacing the pumps with new pumps and then refurbishing the old pumps in case we get into this situation again and we have backups that we don't have to rent? Is there any value in that?
Go ahead.
Yeah, so short answer is no. If we were to go to option 3, the mounting will be different.
Okay.
The refurbished pump, the pump we just got back refurbished, lasted 5 days.
Yeah.
Not really acceptable. The natural backup is its internal lead lag operation. It's bit of an unknown at the time, why the refurbished pump, which should have just taken over for pump number 1, only lasted 5 days. And unfortunately, I think that it's just difficult to see a value in finally determining. So it is unfortunate that will kind of stay unresolved.
Okay.
But the benefit to the provider that I'm recommending is how local they are and their ability to source short-term rental pumps. So in the future, if we have a problem with one of these pumps, instead of in these 5 days working out trying to get it pulled and sent to a third party supplier who doesn't stock parts, doesn't maintain an expertise, has to talk back to the manufacturer. We put this on the back of a truck. We drive it to Ottawa, and in most of the cases we've done this, the techs are able to fix it while we wait. They pop the cover off, they take a look, they put it back together, and we bring it back on the same truck that took it up and drop it back in place. It's of course not available every time, but in the event of a failure of one, well, maybe one is getting refurbed in 10 or 12 years, then we would source a rental ahead of time instead of just relying on the one pump, as we did with this supplier who doesn't have that capability. So we actually pulled that pump last time for the refurb and just left one pump in service, and our backup was septic haulers, which was not required, but that was that is our backup in that case.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Thanks so much, Peter. Councillor Card.
Yes, a couple of questions. Is there such a thing as warranty on a pump that's refurbished and lasted 5 days? Most pump manufacturers do offer some kind of warranty on their work, or rebuilders.
Yeah, so we I would say yes, if there was any way of determining if this was a workmanship issue. Right now, we have a motor that's throwing an overload in high temp, and that's not something they would have had a direct involvement. We have reached out to the supplier and we've asked questions kind of for answers, but without them going and looking at it, they're not going to be able to answer whether this was a workmanship issue. When we have the other pump number one, showing a over temp and overload, sorry, high temp and overload fault, and the electricians are saying that this is a bad sign for this motor. If we were just to say, hey, this pump, we put it in service, it's vibrating, I would say absolutely we would have pulled it out and sent it right back for them to work out what it was, whether it was in relation to their work or in relation to a new problem that's developed. But in this case, we're really not there. We don't suspect that it is a workmanship issue. When it was brought in and commissioned, it ran. It actually ran at a higher flow than previous, which was a good sign that this was going to do its job and be a lot more efficient. But I'm really hesitant to try to send this one pump back to hopefully get half of our system back up and running, and then to have to send the other pump for reverb. Again, we're looking at pumps that would be probably replaced in the next 3 to 5 years anyways. Like I wouldn't recommend either of these pumps do a second refurb after that. So
Okay.
Once we pull that pump out and get a look at, like if I can go in and take a look, rebuild from rebuilding impellers in the past, if I find a bolt that was left in or missed or run through something like that, I'd absolutely be following up with that supplier. I don't know, I think I'm making a short answer long, but I'm really not confident in that path.
So my second
Go
question
ahead,
would be, is there any commonality between the two failures? It seems kind of odd that you'd have two pumps go down at the same time, and I'm just wondering if it's you mentioned it was a drive initially on the first pump and vibration on the second pump. So is there any possibility of the motor off of the pump that's vibrating, which would seem to indicate that that's a pump problem, not a motor problem, and combining the two for short-term analysis and going ahead with ordering your new pumps? I fully agree that new is probably the way to go. I'm just looking at, is there any way we could defer half the cost till next year in the budget?
Yeah, so to your worship, not really. The vibration on the pump has done at least damage to one of the mounts, which will also require replacement. It has also caused that to start throwing the high temp overload, suggesting that it is now caused damage to the motor. The motor on the other pump, it was a fault from the drive. The drives are going to stay. The drives are capable of running either of the new pumps. The original fault was in relation to likely tolerance and seals and the impeller movement. So when that impeller was stopping, it was coming to a hard stop and throwing back a voltage current back to the drive. So that one likely would have been eligible for a refurb if it wasn't for the damage that the electrician is seeing to the motor with that fault. Like that fault is not a fault that's a good sign on the actual motor itself. So everybody I'm talking to is not suggesting that we can get these pumps without taking them to shop, pulling them apart, and getting an actual look at them, which could take a few weeks, as well as the fact that it's just like the risk is delay in both cases, where having these out for weeks to then determine that they're not repairable. I also think we're going for the like for like. If we were to replace only one this year, it would have to be one that's of the same manufacturer that we have there now, which we don't even know if they're available. The initial feedback from the supplier, who's still working on it, he hasn't been able to get even a price for it. So I don't know what that cost of the pump is. I also don't have the mounts yet for fixing that or their availability and lead time. And lastly, the supplier's not sure they can get the Class 1 Division 1 explosion proof for our wells. They have that classification in the States, but they have not been able to get it in Canada. So he's also working on that. So I'm not ruling it out. If we have existing mounts, we might be able to put one pump in this year. And yeah, so I think even out of this meeting, we're still actively pursuing both options. But I want to be clear with council that I do think that it's the third option is going to be the one that's going to, in the end, cost the least amount of money, based on the speed and ongoing maintenance.
So last but not least, through you, your worship, when you come to council, is there a possibility that you can present 2 or 3 scenarios with a cost analysis at September 1st, or is that pushing it?
Yeah, they have the authority to go ahead today under the procurement bylaw. They're not looking for us to approve this. They're briefing us on what they need to do. If I do have a motion for you, they will take all that into consideration and they will report to us what they've done, but we can't wait the 2 weeks. They've made that clear.
Understood.
Okay. Anybody, anything else? So should we just let it go, them using the procurement process and report back on the 1st, or do you want to put a motion forward?
Let's put a motion in.
So the motion that we have, we can play with it. I'll get Councillor Aragona to move it, Councillor Card to second, that council receive the report entitled Glen Street SPS pump failures for information, and that council direct staff to procure and maintain the emergency bypass until replacement pumps and hardware can be obtained and installed. Any discussion? Then I'll call the question. All in favor? Carried. Okay, thank you, team. And it looks like so for the public watching, and I guess particularly for those living on Whalen and Glen Street, thanks to Mr. Evans for giving us a timeline of when the pumps kick in. They probably think that it's like every 10 seconds, and it's not. But we wanted you to know what was behind it, how incredibly important. Of course, all of the waste in the village, all the wastewater in the village goes through that station up to the lagoon. So we need to keep it operating. And we just ask you for your patience. We thought giving you some information might help that as well. Peter, thank you. I know you've been working almost around the clock on this to be able to brief council today. Good luck, and we look forward to seeing your report on the 1st of September. Of course, to the CAO for putting this together on such important life in our election cycle. So with that being said, I will ask Councillor Cardy to move, Councillor Aragona to second, that the special meeting of council be adjourned at 1:31. All in favor?